just want to continue on from this last question and ask you to just take a little time to elaborate, to flesh out, to perhaps dream a bit. But you talk about being an optimist and getting beyond net zero. And what is it that you can see in that positive future past net zero? What is it that lifts your heart up as you look toward that future? You know, what is it lifts your heart when you keep that optimism going?
Yeah. Well, it's not there all the time, but I sure try. It's a combination of things. I mentioned last time I was on that I'm Native American, and even though I never lived on the reservation, my grandfather did, and those stories, those ideas, traditions, which certainly passed on from my grandfather to my father and to me. And so I tend to approach everything from that more systematic, longer term view anyway, right? And always thinking, I mean, it's a cliche these days, but it's no kidding, 7 generations, right? You have to think 7 generations in the future for every decision. And so when I started doing that, and I started becoming a scientist and going into grad school and learning all these things, I mean, I gloomed onto those topics that I'm like, oh, that's actually promising. Let's go there. So for my PhD, I studied urban ecology because to most conservationists, urban environments are sort of this void of ecological value. And I said, well, I know that's not true. I go birding out of my backyard all the time, right? There's got to be some value there. And sure enough, over the last 20 years now, we have this huge body of literature that suggests, no, actually, urban environments can be these really rich places for biodiversity and for things, for community gardens and all these things that actually have this, again, nature positive sort of bent of like, no, we can choose how we juxtapose our buildings and asphalt and where we choose to put these parks and what we choose to plant in those parks to actually benefit the ecosystem that surrounds us. And so knowing that there's these elements of these environmental crises that people are looking really hard at, well, what's the opportunity? What's the positive side of this? Has really helped me, because most of environmental science is just documenting the bad and the stuff that we haven't done right. And that's important. But equally important is to identify, okay, well, what's next? So do we continue this, or do we look for opportunities to improve? And so that's where things like urban ecology, that's where scenario planning comes in, because I've now done this in many, many places: Australia, Alaska, Idaho, Vegas, all these different environments where I'm coming in with totally different people every single time. And I always come out feeling optimistic about the future of that place, because, it's really that integration of, well, people care about the place. And regardless of what politics and regardless of what, everyone thinks people say, we all have the same, vision and goal in life. And that's just to live a good life and be in a place that you want to be. So when you unify around a landscape, it's really easy to kind of come up with those common goals and think positively about the future then.